inevitable humiliation that the Labour Party will suffer come May, because they're going to get a shellacking in the local elections. They're going to get humiliated. So what's she trying to do? She's trying to stop the elections. It's outrageous.
Angela Rayner just pulled off one of the most outrageous power grabs in modern British politics. Elections cancelled. Millions of voters silenced. And what's her excuse? A pathetic, last-minute excuse so insulting it has left even some Labour supporters furious. But here's the real scandal. This isn't just about a few delayed votes. This is about a government terrified of the people. A government so desperate to cling to power that they're willing to shut down democracy itself.
Now, I thought that only dictators cancelled elections, but no, this is the connivance of a now terrified Labour Party, and boy, didn't we see that today.
And the backlash? It's erupting. Reform UK is fighting back, the British public is waking up, and the question now is, will Rayner succeed in rigging democracy, or will this be the moment that finally stops her? Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will shock you. Angela Rayner's rise to Deputy Prime Minister and Secretary of State for Levelling Up, Housing, and Communities was supposed to mark a new era for Labour. But now, she's at the centre of a political storm that could change everything. And if you haven't been paying attention, trust me, you need to. Here's the deal: Rayner has built her reputation as a tough, no-nonsense politician who believes in balancing socialist ideals with practical compromises. She's all about winning elections and making real changes, like expanding free school meals. But just as she steps into one of the most powerful roles in the UK, she's about to shake up the democratical landscape of the nation. And the backlash is coming from all sides. And trust me, this gets way worse than just cancelling elections. Because the deeper you dig, the more corrupt this whole scheme becomes. And wait until you hear what Rayner's been caught doing behind the scenes.
Dictators cancel elections, not democracy. Dictators. 5.5 million voters in southern England are being denied the right to pass judgment on the performance of their councillors over the last 4 years. Interestingly, in areas where Reform UK are expected to do rather well.
In a controversial move, Rayner announced that local elections in East Sussex, West Sussex, Essex, Thurrock, Hampshire, the Isle of Wight, Norfolk, Suffolk, and Surrey will be delayed for a full year. Why? She claims it's to allow major governmental reorganisations that will shift power from Whitehall to local councils. Rayner insists that holding elections for councils that are set to be scrapped would be a waste of taxpayer money. So, the shake-up will merge smaller district councils with local county councils, creating unitary authorities that represent populations of around 500,000. Rayner argues this is a necessary step toward decentralisation, but her critics say it's a blatant power grab. Conservative Shadow Minister Kevin Hollinray calls it a mass postponement and a worrying day for democracy. And he's not alone. Reform UK has already launched a petition against the delays, while Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey has slammed it as a disgraceful stitch-up between Labour and the Tories. But this isn't the first time Rayner has been caught in a scandal, because just months ago, she was under investigation for something that could have been career-ending.
They're running scared. They're running scared from the electorate, and actually they should front up to it. It doesn't matter whether they change again afterwards. If there's May elections, local elections, and it's set in stone, regardless of the circumstances, they should have those elections. And Labour will have to deal with the consequences. If the punters out there like them, they'll vote for them. But based on what's happened so far, they won't.
Reform UK had been expected to experience a major breakthrough in the upcoming local elections, with polls predicting a surge in support for the recent Reform Party. But now, with the elections delayed, that momentum has been cut off at the knees. Of course, that didn't sit well with the Reform leader, Nigel Farage.
So I'm standing here today to say we think it is completely outrageous. In fact, despite the fact we're a very happy, optimistic, forward-looking party, we are blimmin' angry this afternoon that 5.5 million people in this country are being denied their vote.
But here's what's really shocking: Rayner's own party members aren't even defending this. When even your own allies start turning against you, you know something's gone terribly wrong. This isn't the first time that Rayner has clashed with the public. Back in April 2024, a complaint from the opposition led to an investigation into her past living arrangements and tax records. The accusations are that she may have misrepresented her primary residence over a decade ago, possibly breaching electoral law, and that she might have avoided paying capital gains tax when selling her former council house in 2015. At first, the police weren't interested, but after pressure from a Conservative MP, they opened investigation.
Is Angela Rayner telling the truth? I thought we'd find out last night at the book launch, The Red Queen by Michael Ashcroft. Massive, fabulous launch party at the banqueting house in Whitehall, where Charles I was executed in 1649. But Angela Rayner wasn't there to answer questions about whether she did or didn't or should have paid capital gains tax on the sale of that council house all those years ago.
Now, here's where things get intense. Reports suggested a well-resourced team is digging into her council tax records, and Labour's leadership is feeling the heat. Rayner insists she's done nothing wrong, saying she followed all rules and will step down if found guilty. Keir Starmer didn't back down. He called the whole thing a smear and pointed fingers at Rishi Sunak, accusing him of going after Rayner while ignoring tax avoidance among his own allies.
We've got a billionaire Prime Minister and a billionaire Prime Minister, both of whose families have used schemes to avoid millions of pounds of tax, smearing a working-class woman.
In May, the investigation into the past tax and residency claims officially came to an end. The police announced that they would not be taking further action, stating that matters of council tax and personal tax fall outside their jurisdiction. However, they did pass the case to HMRC and Stockport Council for further review. But in a move that seemed to shut the door on the controversy, both HMRC and Stockport Council determined that Rayner did not owe any capital gains tax and decided against pursuing any legal action. But if you thought Rayner's election scandal was bad, just wait until you hear about the other controversy that's haunting her past, one that made even Labour's most loyal supporters question Rayner's leadership. Angela Rayner faced backlash in April last year over her past support for a trans rights charter that labelled feminist groups like Women's Place UK and the LGBT Alliance as hate groups. These groups had raised concerns about how trans children were being treated in medical settings, a debate that has only grown more intense after the Cass Review cast doubt on the safety of puberty blockers. After the explosive findings of the Cass Review, which called the evidence for gender medicine shaky, and warned that puberty blockers should be used with extreme caution, many expected Angela Rayner to rethink her stance. But instead of backing down, her spokesperson doubled down, refusing to apologize or renounce her past support.
Transgender women's rights are women's rights.
And this isn't just about Rayner anymore. Labour as a whole is feeling the heat of their stance on gender issues. Keir Starmer, who once confidently declared trans women are women, has started backpedaling, with his team now clarifying that sex and gender are legally distinct. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting has outright admitted he was wrong for taking such a hardline stance in favour of trans rights. Meanwhile, Health Secretary Victoria Atkins isn't letting Labour off the hook, calling them out for intimidating those who dare to question their views. The pressure keeps mounting, with the LGBT Alliance pushing for Labour to officially shift its stance, arguing that questioning medical treatments for children isn't hateful, it's responsible. Women's Place UK is watching closely, cautiously optimistic about Labour's change in tone, but demanding real action, not just empty words. And then came the moment Rayner lost even more credibility, because this time, she dismissed a major security threat as fake news. But now, the facts are out, and they don't look good for her. Farage had questioned whether Axel Rudakubana had ties to terrorism, and Rayner was quick to shut him down, urging politicians to avoid conspiracy theories. But here's the problem: Rudakubana had actually been flagged for extremism multiple times, referred to the UK's Prevent Anti-Extremism programme 3 times, and had an Al-Qaeda training manual and ricin in his home. Farage wasted no time in calling this a cover-up, saying it proved he was right all along. And he's not the only one demanding answers. Many are questioning why the government kept this information secret, especially as riots erupted across the country, leading to over 1,200 arrests. Critics argue that by withholding these key details, the government fueled public distrust, let misinformation spread unchecked, and worsened an already tense situation. Now, Rayner and other MPs who dismissed Farage's concerns are under pressure to explain themselves. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp and terrorism law experts insist that more transparency was possible without compromising the trial.
In the wake of the horrific murder of those 3 girls in Southport in July of this year, I asked some questions saying, please tell us the truth. Stop the online speculation. Well, it's taken a long time. He's now been charged, believe it or not, under the Biological Weapons Act, because the police have found ricin in his home. He's been charged under the Terrorism Act.
Let's also talk about the not-so-cozy relationship between Rayner and Starmer, because it looks like the public isn't the only group she's been clashing with. They're supposed to be on the same team, but there's an undeniable undercurrent of rivalry. When Starmer wanted to change Labour's leadership election rules, Rayner told him to lock in union support first. He listened, they pulled it off, but let's just say the tension didn't magically disappear. Rayner played a huge role in securing union backing, but Starmer's allies aren't convinced she's just being a team player. Some believe she has her own leadership ambitions, and it became pretty obvious during that chaotic shadow cabinet reshuffle. She's also walking a fine line, backing Starmer's policies while simultaneously risking the support of Labour's left-wing base. Then there's the fact that Starmer and Rayner just don't seem to click. You rarely see them together, and their leadership styles couldn't be more different. Rayner is fiery, relatable, and great at rallying crowds. Starmer is strategic, careful, and all about the details. And that brings us to another thing, Rayner's political identity. She's great at hyping up Labour supporters, but when it comes to taking bold, principled stands, the jury's still out. Compare her to someone like Barbara Castle, who wasn't afraid to go against the grain, like when she opposed Britain joining the European Economic Community. But Rayner's stance on major issues like Brexit has been less than clear. But where does all this leave the UK? Can Labour's leadership really take the country forward, or are we in for more political chaos? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you don't want to miss out on the biggest political shake-ups, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.